Welcome to the Fedora Files. I am Gregory Fedora, and with me today is the pimp of poltergeists, Chip Stetson.
Hey, how you doing, Gregory?
Great. Welcome back. Welcome
Oh, thank
back.
you.
Now, I had done a podcast on UFOs and some of my
Mhm.
favorite ones, as well as experiences. And then I was talking to you, and actually in that one, I kind of called you out and said I probably should bring you on at some point and talk about UFOs because I know you like them, you like the stories, and
Yeah,
you
no,
even have an experience, other than the time you were abducted and probed anally. But other than
yeah,
that, yeah.
and they
Oh,
still haven't called.
I'm gonna have to bleep that because
No, they
kids
still
could be
haven't called.
watching. Yeah, yeah. They didn't even take you to dinner.
I know,
They
not even buy me a drink. I mean,
Yeah, nothing, nothing, nothing. So, what are some of your favorite like UFO
well,
stories?
the ones that I enjoy the most now, because like growing up as a child, well, just that's what you do when you're a child, you grow up. I read a lot of stories and books and stuff like that about UFOs, and they were always fascinating to me, starting with Roswell and working their way up. But the ones that interest me more are the current ones, like the UFO sighting over, where was it, Arizona, the V-shaped lights that, they said were flares, even though there's like video of this huge V-shaped, aircraft or UFO, flying over parts of Arizona with people, just staying there videoing, and they're saying no, they were flares from an aircraft. Just
Yeah,
the cover up stories.
longest burning flares ever.
Yeah, and they traveled the most distance too.
In a straight
Um,
line. Yeah,
One of my favorite shows that I really dig watching, because you get to see some really interesting footage, is well, it's paranormal caught on tape, but they also show people with, that have UFO sightings and things like that as well. And some of the pictures and video that they come out with are just absolutely incredible. And I think the
yeah,
fact that people have phones, with really high res cameras and things like that, you're going to see a lot more of these, and it's going to be harder to cover it up.
yeah, yeah. I mean, those aren't you're like kind of like the opposite of me because I'm really into like the really old ones,
Hmm.
like that predate like airplanes. So I'm like, hi, like, because in my mind, a lot of times people were like, well, they back then, it's probably a comet and they didn't know what that was. It's like, no, they knew what comets and meteors were. It's like when these things did stuff, is like that was weird.
Didn't you research one that crash landed in Texas? I think it was like in the
Yeah.
1800s.
Yeah, Aurora, Texas.
Yeah.
And yeah,
And
yeah.
they even gave a funeral for
The
the
person, yeah, the
the
occupant,
pilot. Yeah.
yeah. And it was described as human looking but
Boyd. Yeah.
small. And
Yeah.
they yeah, and they like that was just a weird incident. Like,
A one
oh
off. Yeah.
no, because they yeah, but I mean just like what they did because they buried part of the craft with them and then they hid the rest of it. And I don't understand why. And then now it's kind of lost in history because the
Didn't they have like a grave marker, and then somebody petitioned to exhume the grave, and then after they finally got approval for it, they went back the next day, and the place had been wiped out. Like the government
yeah,
came in, just
yeah,
leveled
yeah,
everything.
and like yeah, then nothing. They have nothing now, and now they don't even have them. Now they just have a plaque from the Texas Historical Society that tells the story.
Yeah, like one of those roadside things that you see when you're driving
Yeah,
around.
yeah, yeah, but it's like right by in front of the cemetery.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, but yeah, that one's like interesting. That was like in the big 1800, like 1880, 1890 era where they were seeing all kind of this weird, a, a lot of reports of like a cigar shaped craft.
Right.
And there are reports all over the country about this, but mostly in the
Oh,
West, in the
and
Southwest. But
and you see them in Renaissance pictures and paintings and things like that.
yeah,
Where they're just kind of like shown in the background. Like they
what is
wanted to
that?
put them in, but they didn't want it to be like the focal point, but they didn't want it to be lost to history either. So they're like, all right, here's Mary and Jesus, and then ooh, let's put a UFO up here.
Yeah, yeah, that's it right
You
there.
see them
Yeah,
on in cave wall paintings, and just weird shapes, creatures, that kind of
yeah,
look like humanoids but aren't. It just
yeah.
it's not something that's new. It's new to us because, ever since we started learning how to fly, people are looking in the sky more, I think.
Hmm.
Well, they did once aircraft came out, and I think that's when a lot of them started popping up, because there was a huge influx of UFO sightings during the 40s and 50s.
Yeah,
And
the Foo Fighters.
aircraft, yeah, yeah, exactly. With World War II. And yeah, not the band,
Yeah.
which is a really good band. I love it. But no, it seems like people's fascination with aviation. I mean, even now you hear an airplane, in the sky, people tend to look up,
Yeah.
so it's just one of
Especially
those things.
helicopters.
Yeah.
You
Yeah. They're
stop
like,
for a helicopter. Hey, helicopter. It's like you've never seen one, but no, you have, but you still want to see it again. So
yeah, I don't know why. It's like this conditioned response, it's Pavlovian.
yeah, and but now you got all these crazy drones everywhere, like especially we're in the DC area where you're seeing drones everywhere. And so
Yeah, there's one that keeps hovering outside my bathroom window. It's really frustrating.
yeah, I'm just trying to get some good shots for
Oh, okay.
your
Well,
fan
call me,
page.
man.
Yeah. So that's just wrong, man. That's
Yeah.
wrong. So I also know I mean, you told me your story. You have an experience where
Well,
you actually saw not only ones on YouTube and on shows, but you saw one with your own eyes in the
I
sky.
saw more than one. There's probably
Yeah.
about 12 of them, to be honest.
All right.
Now, people might not know this, and I can't remember if we've ever mentioned this before, but we grew up, and I still currently live around Wright-Patterson Air Force Base,
Mm-hmm.
which, if you're in the UFO community, know is kind of a hot spot and a big deal. Surprisingly, there's more UFO sightings on the West Coast than there are on the East Coast. I'm not sure what the
Mm-hmm.
reason for that is, but like Colorado, Nevada, California, Arizona, New Mexico, places like that. I mean, it just seems like that there are more places out there for UFOs. Now, some of it has to do with experimental aircraft,
Mm-hmm.
with, Area 51. You've got Air Force bases out in California. And it's just, I guess, sonic booms have become a normal out there with when they're testing aircraft. But for us, I mean, yes, we have a lot of aircraft, and I mean, we see them all the time. But the experience I had, I was, at the time I was dating this one lady, and I couldn't tell you her name if I wanted to. It didn't
Mm-hmm.
last very long, but we were outside just enjoying the evening, weather. And she was probably about half a mile from the base as crow flies. And she's looking up, and she's like, "Do you see those lights moving in the sky?" I'm like, "You know why they're moving?" Being a smartass, I'm like, "Well, the Earth rotates about 10,000 miles an hour." She's like, "No, smartass, those." And she points, and I look up, and there's all these dots of lights that are kind of moving around. Now, okay, the best way to describe it is like if you gave 12 different people 12 laser point, devices,
Mm-hmm.
and just had them move them around. And, there's no conformity, there's no organization or anything like that. They're just kind of all buzzing around. And then all of a sudden, they all stopped at the same time, and then streaked across the sky. They left like a light trail, and they
Mm-hmm.
all parted in the same direction. And then they were gone. I mean, this lasted maybe a minute and a half. It was captivating. I've never seen anything like that. I mean, once you saw it, you couldn't take your eyes off of it. Now, being Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and of course, what was it, Hangar 18 that everybody thinks, where they
Mm-hmm.
took the alien bodies in the Roswell crash after traveling out of Arizona over to Kelly, up to or New Mexico over to, I think it was Kelly, and then up to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And so they think there's a lot of R&D going up on around Wright Pat. Now, I mean, they're definitely UFOs. I don't know if they were aliens. With
Yeah.
it being Wright Patterson Air Force Base, that could have been experimental suborbital aircraft, that
Mm-hmm.
they were testing. It was such a high altitude. I mean, it definitely wasn't in the sky, but it was in
Mm-hmm.
the like the lower atmosphere, or even the outer atmosphere. It was you could tell that it was in space.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a really, really interesting experience. I haven't seen anything quite like that. I've seen videos of people getting swarms of UFOs on their, cameras and such, but that was the first time I ever experienced anything like that. I've seen one-offs and individual flights,
Mm-hmm.
There was one that had just a multitude of lights. There wasn't any concrete shape to it. It's just like well, you were talking about cigar shape. It was like the lights itself were cigar shape. I couldn't tell if there was anything that was above it or below it, but there was a number of lights, all different colors. Well, I think
Mhm.
they were colorblind, but um, definitely different colors. So I'm not sure which ones they were. I mean, they could have been red, blue, and yellow, but could have been green. It could have been something else. I don't know.
Mhm.
But
Cool.
you were saying that you had some experiences too.
Yeah.
What was
Well,
the one that you were talking about?
well, I mean, the one I told in the last episode, which is, I'll retell it in case people haven't heard it, and they don't have to go back and listen. So, but they
No,
should
you do.
anyway.
Go back and
Yeah,
listen.
go and listen. No, but I'll just tell it quickly. Was my wife and I were at my parents' house in Florida, and they live right near the beach, and we were sitting there looking up at the sky, and we saw these things that look like if you have your fingers, like your pointer finger and your middle finger, about you know, just spread them as far as you can. And there are
Mhm.
two stars. I thought two stars, and we both were looking at them. We're, oh, that's pretty cool. And we're like, oh, it's probably Mars, Venus, or something. Like we were trying to figure out if it was a planet, what it was. And then all of a sudden, they just moved in unison and then stopped till they're practically right above us. And we're like, that is weird. And I was at first I was saying rotation. And I go, but they were moving from south to north, and the earth rotates east to west, and uh and so it wasn't moving like that, and it stopped, and then they boom, just gone. And it was like and we looked at each other like, what was that? And then a few
So you saw that too, right?
yeah, then the craziest part was a few months later we used to watch Destination Truth with Josh Gates.
Oh
And
yeah. He even read one of your
Yeah,
emails,
he
didn't he?
read one of my emails on his Josh Gates at late at night about sharks.
Sharks.
And
That's right.
yeah,
I
yeah.
remember him
And
saying, "God, I hope this is his real name."
yeah. And
He really like,
he loved that. He loved my question because it's about sharks and speedos and what color
yeah,
is safest. And he answered it. He
yeah,
actually
he
got a
did.
shark expert to
Expert.
answer
Yeah.
my question, which was classic because I was like, all right, I'm just gonna ask because he asked on Twitter for questions, so I did.
Yeah. No.
And he actually read it, and then the shark expert told and well, yeah, if you're going to do a speedo, you probably I was like, this is the best. I
You're like, I
recorded
can't
it.
believe it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
But
that was great.
back to it. So Destination Truth was before Expedition Unknown, and
Uh,
in that episode they saw exactly the same thing as two lights thing, and they were filming, and they're like, what is that? And they're looking at it, and it moved same way, and then it was practically over them, and it went boom, gone.
oh wow.
And my wife and I were like, what the heck? That was exactly what we saw. But now, then in another incident, and it was probably a few years before this, and it was down in Florida again, and I was driving on A1A Beachfront Avenue with my
I
good
knew you were
friend,
going
uh,
to say
uh,
that.
my good friend Ice, and actually no, I was by myself. But
Yeah.
anyway, so I was driving on A1A from the south towards St. Augustine. Um, I was kind of like if you were coming from Daytona on
Right. As
A1A,
opposed to Jacksonville
and
Beach.
yeah, and I looked out, and I mean that A1A is right by the ocean in
Right.
that area, and I was looking out at the ocean, and I saw what I thought was a shooting star, and I was like, "Oh man, that one's awesome!" And it was a lot longer than shooting stars normally are, but it wasn't like it didn't have a tail, but it was bright and it was going straight across, and I was like, "That's," and then it all of a sudden just went straight up, and it was like a 90-degree angle, just and then gone. And I was like, what the flip was that? And I was like, and there two other cars in front of me had stopped, and I
So they
braked
saw the
too.
same thing.
They saw the same, and we all got out, and they're like, "Did you see that?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "What?" And then one was like, "Was there a rocket launch tonight?" Because they're wondering if there's a Cape Canaveral, because you can see rockets, but I've never, and I'd seen them plenty of times
Not
at night, but
horizontal and
yeah,
then
they don't go horizontal. They kind of go at this weird angle.
Yeah.
but it's not like straight then up, and it is like, and it was out across the ocean. And usually Cape Canaveral, they kind of do this weird
Art.
corkscrew turn arc
Yeah, I
thing.
remember watching some of the space shuttle
Yeah.
launches while I was down there.
Yeah, so there's like at least two other cars stopped, saw. We were all like, "What? That's freaky!" And then we were in a dark area of the beach area, and I was just like, "You know what? I'm not staying around in case whatever that is comes back looking for, experimental people."
Yeah,
So
I've seen the TV shows. Yeah.
yeah, I know how
I was driving late
fire.
at night and then my
Yeah,
car
fire in the
died.
sky, and then my buddies all get back. I come back walking funny, and I've been drinking. I mean, whatever.
See,
Yeah.
that's when I stopped listening.
What?
Yeah, and we've
Yeah.
been drinking.
Yeah. I don't know why all they always seem to be interested in sticking things in parts of people's bodies that they don't need to go. But
Yeah.
no, I don't get
If
that.
you're gonna look at the inside of somebody, pick
Get
someplace
an
clean.
X-ray. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I mean,
you'd think they're advanced technology. They don't need to stick
just
anything
scan.
anywhere. Yeah, they
Yeah.
probably could just put some glasses on. Okay, there, and then, whatever. But no, maybe they just like to do that. Maybe in their society, that's
Like,
how you
let's give
say
them something to
hello.
talk about. Nobody will believe them.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what do you think? Like, there are a lot of different theories on what aliens are and stuff. And what do you think of the one? And I find this interesting, where they think some people like there's interdimensional beings. Others say they're from
Like
outer
Indiana
space.
Jones or
Well, and then some others even go. I've heard a few people talk that they're demonic and like almost demons in
well,
origin.
now this is where I
And
kind of break from people that like follow UFOs stuff. Like the people that said, look, there's four different races. There's like the insectoids, there's the tall grays, there's the short grays, and I have no
and the
idea. But
lizard people, you
and
forgot the
lizard
lizards.
people, yeah, and I'm like, once they start getting into stuff like that, that's where I
Like,
kind of break from them.
yeah,
I just well, now, I didn't get a chance to read this, but the other day I saw something about a scientist saying that it's possible that there's a mothership parked in our solar system sending
yeah,
spacecraft. And I'm like,
yeah.
this is a scientist. Now, I mean, I guess anybody could
I
call
mean,
themselves,
yeah.
but
Well, I mean, that is possible. Maybe it's a
yeah.
hiding behind Jupiter or on the dark side of the moon. You know, just
Well, and you got Jupiter. I mean, something small you wouldn't even notice because
it's
Jupiter's so
huge.
big and it's so
Yeah,
bright. We wouldn't be able to pick it out with a telescope or
yeah,
even fly by satellite taking
yeah.
pictures. And
And
shoot, you see
you would
some of
think,
those pictures. Even the moons look like they're just specks of dust. I
yeah.
mean, I think they discovered another 20 moons around. What was it, Saturn? I think
Hmm.
it took over as the planet with the most moons now.
Yeah, yeah. It's mooned more people than anyone.
Yeah, no,
You
that's
would have
Uranus.
thought Uranus, but no. But nice,
Yeah,
nice.
you
Yeah,
set me up.
yeah. I did.
Yeah,
Yeah, softball.
low
Yeah,
hanging
no,
fruit.
yeah, when people start getting into the different races of aliens,
Yeah,
that I'm always like, okay, how do you?
yeah,
I got kind of get the same thing when people get into Bigfoot. I mean, I love Bigfoot stories, but when they start getting into these specific things, like and especially when they say stuff like this, which is, and everybody knows Bigfoot, blah blah blah. How does
yeah.
everybody know this? We've never caught one. I've never sat down with a Bigfoot and asked it.
And I love how
So
they're talking about how they travel in groups and the little Sasquatch and
yeah. How
clings
like
to the dead or
where are the
like
pictures of that?
where are you getting
Yeah,
this information from?
like
Like, well,
yeah,
I found a turd with hair in it and a
yeah,
large footprint. I'm like, no, just I don't buy it.
yeah,
I need
yeah,
more concrete proof. Now
yeah,
I've seen some really good footage of
yeah.
that people have taken of or what's the one here in Ohio,
The
grass
grass
grass.
man.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
and
Ohio grass man. Yeah.
there's been some really, and that one looks. Yeah, I think I'd rather run into Bigfoot than the grass man. I don't know.
Yeah, it's freaky. Yeah. Well, I mean, but yeah, like when they get into these and start going, like, I mean, I love the TV show Ancient Aliens, but like
Yes,
even then they go like,
way far
yeah,
beyond.
they just go way too far for me. It's just like, okay, like that. I mean, I love the quotes. I love the places they go to, and I love how and that's what's cool about
Well, and they
society
bring up a
today.
lot of good questions
Yeah,
about that, like how closely fit and, perfect precision, or the stones that were like carved concentrically inside, how did they do that, with prehistoric tools? And what's the guy with the wind-blown face?
Oh yeah. I know.
You know what I'm talking? Yeah, he cracks me up. I mean, every time he comes on, I mean, I listen. I don't believe him, but
Yeah.
he's like, I know this to be fact. I'm like, no, you don't. You believe it to be fact.
Yeah. It's your belief system. What always cracks me up is he's the one who does this a lot, and it's just, to me, it's funny. Like, because he'll be like, well, they would say, and it's where he'll be like, people will say it was God or angels or demons, but we know those don't exist. So it had to be aliens. And I'm like, we don't even know that aliens exist. It's like we don't know any of these things. Yeah, like, it's like, okay, I go, I think both are like, you gotta have a little bit of leap of faith to trust either one, but
Now, there was an interesting story. I think it was in the book of Ezekiel in the Bible, where it talks about
the wheel and the wheel.
Yeah. And there was an actual engineer that, he was like, well, aliens aren't real. If they were, they've been around forever. Why haven't they talked about them? They're like, well, it's right here in the Bible. And, so he decided to read that book, and then he started wondering, and he started doing research on it, and actually created like a wheel that could go 360 degrees. And then they also the measurements that were given for what he was asked to record measurements for, they built like a 2-scale model of it, and they said that it could actually hold the ship that he described, and it was like a hangar. So I mean, there's interesting things in there you can't explain. So
there's a lot of cool, interesting stuff out there that you just can't explain, and I love that kind of stuff. I love learning about it.
Well, and they said that that he called it like the chariot of God, or they can only use terminology with things that they were familiar with. I mean, they didn't have the word rocket. They didn't know spaceship or anything like that. Only thing they could have was like a chariot. That was the only mode of transportation that I guess was around there beside horses.
So I mean, that's how they describe things. Just like, and we do it now, and like in 1,000 years, people are gonna be like, "What? Oh my gosh, that's." But we describe it as this, and they're gonna have something.
I saw this Walmart in the sky. Like, no, that was a mothership. There's new terminology for it or something. I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's just like in previous podcasts. I'm gonna just keep throwing out the ones I've done for. Like, I did one on cryptozoology, and I was talking about dragons, and the word dinosaur is really new. It's like a little over 100 years old, like maybe close to 200, but it wasn't a word people used, and dragon was a word, and it basically, dinosaur means terrible lizard, and
which is a dragon.
Exactly. So it's like what they said were dragons were dinosaurs were, so the stories of these things were passed down, and they just
embellished or built upon, and probably screeches, and there's that next thing it's shooting fire out of his mouth.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, like the story on what you did to your face. It went from one thing to another, and
that was a bad night.
Yeah.
Everybody's like,
won't get into that.
Well, they said, what happened to your face? I said, I got a fight with a bear. They're like, a bear? How'd that happen? Well, that was half the reason why we got in the fight. He came over, we were watching basketball, started getting drunk, and then he started talking crap about Ted Lasso. So I made fun of the Bachelorette, which really pissed him off. And so I said, hey, go give a hoot flute someplace else. He goes, that's the owl. I'm forest fires. And he sucker punched me. So I kicked him out. He called. I mean, we're cool.
Yeah. I have a feeling there was a lot of drinking before any of that happened. The way you tell it, you got together, then started drinking. I have a feeling you had a lot of drinking before this bear showed up. So I'm just gonna. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it was a good night for a while. Yeah, or morning.
Whatever it was. It was.
Remember.
I like that your dad had your back that day.
Oh yeah. No, he's a good guy.
Nice.
Always has my back. He's got a good right.
Yeah, exactly. But I thank you for coming on and talking
Yeah,
about
well, no, I
UFOs,
appreciate you
man.
having me on. This was fun.
It's fun. Yeah, we'll do it. And we do have some plans for some other. You're researching the most haunted city in
City,
America?
yeah,
Yeah,
that they say that you're not even allowed to visit. So, I
yeah,
mean, this was something that I just recently discovered. I'm sure it's been documented, obviously, since
yeah,
there was an article on it, but I hadn't heard about it. So I thought this would be something fun to look into. I've never been there, obviously, if you can't go there,
yeah.
but I thought it'd be something that you and I'd have a good time talking about.
Yeah. So yeah, when you get some more research on it, I'll look some more stuff on it, and then we'll plan it. We'll plan it
Sounds good,
out.
man.
It'll be
Looking forward
fun.
to it.
Yeah, I am too. But thank you again. And for those of you listening, watching, however you find us, remember to check out Chip's Instagram, and I'll have a link for it below. Check out my Instagram, check out the YouTube channel and the website. All those links will be below. I'm not going to go through and say them again. But just thank you. We appreciate you listening and checking us out. And remember to, as always, stay safe and keep searching.
Fedora Check out fedoracrt.com today.